Everyone, before we begin, if you could sign some green sheets, that'd be really appreciated.
Do you want us to sign as well?
I mean, I'm a student, so.
If you'd like.
Will they check? I still get student discounts sometimes. You think so? Okay. It is a bit sus if they do check, like getting random stuff.
I think the only thing they care about is numbers, to be 100% honest.
Okay. I still have a student number. Like, whoa. Yeah. Only 6 digits in the student number? Crazy.
If not, I can always send it through Discord. What is the number? Like I touched, I did like 1 or 2 comments like this. Like I will, like this, and you remember trading that. Wait, it's not on day trading? Well, like a pump, it's not a blind. It's not a blind.
All right, ready? Yeah.
Oh,
You start? Yeah, okay, sweet. All right, so for people listening on Zoom or watching the recording, welcome. There's a few people in the room, but the session is supposed to be based around doing some questions in a practice exam that we made on Canvas. So grab up the mini practice exam. We'll go through that, I guess, in a second. So Lucy and I are presenting for this year, or this semester anyway. Yeah, nice. All right, and before we begin, we have our acknowledgement of country. So we'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and I'd also like to pay respects to Indigenous elders past, present, and emerging, and extend such respects to those who may be present today, and sovereignty was never ceded. All right, and also second disclaimer is that we are not officially endorsed by the universities, and none of these materials have been reviewed by official or by people that are currently working in a staff position at the university, and any tutors, including myself and Lucy, who are here, are not working as capacity at the university. Just here to help out. And then these are some links to go check out CISA. Okay. And anything you wanted to shout out from here? Just that there are revision workshops, which you probably know if you're here already. Great. And that it's a supplemental tool, but it's not necessarily covering everything. So at the end of this slide deck, there are a bunch of slides that we had from previously, which were going into at least as much as we could fit in the time we had in a 2-hour session to cover what we consider to be the key dot points for all of the material for the subject. But it's not really a great experience to be doing a revision session and just trying to cram in a whole subject's worth of dot points. So instead of going through in that format, we've left those slides in there for you to review at your leisure afterwards. But what we're actually doing today is going to work through a little micro or mini practice exam. So we made a little Canvas test. It's shorter than what you'd expect from a real exam. So don't use it as a guide for length of an exam, but it's good to sort of cover the breadth for what you might expect and to get you familiar with some Canvas question types. And it's good to start you for your revision journey. So there's 2 dot points number 1 here. Do maybe dot point number 1 first if you're here in the room. Otherwise, open up the LMS and go to the mini practice exam. So how many of you are actually students? Sorry, and how many of you with CISA?
We're CISA, but we're also students.
Also students as well. So how many are there? 3?
3, yeah.
3? Okay, lovely. So you're in a group of approximately 2, which is fine. Great. Okay, so like I said, what you're doing is go on to, just open Zoom. Go over to Canvas, go over to modules, scroll down to the bottom, or just search for mini and open this bad boy up here. And as Simon so kindly changed the description, it says it's provided as is, it's no guarantees, it's not supposed to be representative of the subject content potentially. All right, we all got that up? Yeah? Yeah? Nice. All right, Lucy's ready to go. Lucy's going to do it as well. Okay, so part one, I'm just going to leave this like this so we can sort of go through the slides easily, is ER modeling. So we did ER modeling for what? 4 weeks of content. So there's usually at least, roughly a quarter of the exam-ish marks, fifth to a quarter. So we'll do sort of 20 minutes just on this. In terms of basic guide for this part of the exam or what we assess, there's usually a question revolving around basic data types. So we might give you some descriptions like, hey, what data type would you choose to store a customer's name or to store a phone number or whatever? And then you choose from like a drop-down list. That's how it's been tested in the past, but just making sure that you're aware that that is examinable. The exam's digital, so you won't have to necessarily draw a model like you did in assignment one, or create one like you did for assignment one, part two. But generally, you'll have to critique some existing models. So we'll give you some like slices of a model or maybe a whole model and a case study, and you'd read through the case study, compare it to whatever the model was that was, constructed by a friend or by some other INFO20003 student, and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, or choose the best from a grouping or whatever. All right. And there's a DDL question as well. A lot of people don't really remember that or don't know that that is accessible. It's usually there in the exam as well. So the create table statements. So in your groups, go through questions 1 through 5 in the practice exam, and roughly 5 minutes for 1, 5 for 2 and 3, 5 for question 4 and 5. But because there's literally only one group, we'll just go off and do question 1, and then when you're done, we'll discuss it, and then go off and do question 2 and 3, and we'll discuss it afterwards. What's your team name, by the way? That was the other step you had to choose from the beginning. Yep, very important. Oh, no, that's not what I meant to do. You need a team name. Very important. You can spend a few minutes on that as well. Yeah, I forgot the initial 5 minutes we covered for the team name. That's what is really says. The database, yeah, okay.
Database rival.
Yeah, you gotta think more abstract, like something to do with dolphins and MySQL or something like that. Yeah. Or maybe relations.
Yeah, that's what I was going
Yeah.
on. So I was like, this seems like a team. But then it's like, is it two? Like, is there a connotation?
We're all related.
Essentially started.
Alright, so you remember the
Yeah. I don't remember what I did. I had to get to use, I was getting an idea. So just kind of.
No, so I didn't have any exams to prep for, so I'm figuring that like I would do consider.
So it was like. It's not a much time.
Yeah, you're gonna be there as well. I think you're gonna be the tutor with maybe the second one. So Tim is back now.
Because I was like, yeah, we've had some veterans come back, which is sick.
Yeah, well, Tim was gone for ages. We here when Tim was here.
No.
He had cancer, and then he like went away for years, and now he's back. So that's it. Yeah, I was there.
He had cancer.
Yeah.
Years. I would get mad.
Yeah, as well. That's intense.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry to hear.
But he's back. What chat?
Yeah, this is also the kind of information that I can't bring up. I can't be like, it's him. I just have to be like.
You know what? I think you could, and I think he'd probably be fine with it. Like it's not like something that if I had cancer, I would never shut up about it. Like, yes. Although that's not enough.
You're like,
It would be like
not
I'd be
speaking.
That's not really impressive numbers. I mean, I don't know why I started like that.
So no exam for the year one. What else do you have exams for?
Most of the 3 exams, one.
Oh, but it's 16 years.
Oh, that was-
Actually,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was a fair amount. I remember. Was that the festival or the other grade?
Video demonstration.
Technically, it's the master. Wait, actually, no, it has to be master level, yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm doing with master students. So.
Okay. Oh, I think there were quite a few master students doing my one as well. Like I did the undergrad one. I can't remember what the subject code was, but
Well,
I think it's like the same subject because they were both in fact. Like one week from fire.
there's a good amount of, or at least there's like some solid foundations from elements of data process, which I do.
Oh yeah, it does.
But I just like, that one.
Somehow I skipped that. No, but I like everyone talks about how much they hate that subject. But I can't remember. I think I just submitted it as like a week away.
That's genuinely cool.
I didn't necessarily like love the subject, but I also still liked it. Mainly because, just because like I didn't come from a statistical background, I didn't come from I didn't, my undergrad was not computer science, when I came to do my master's, I didn't have computer science foundations. So I have to like elements of data processing is really foundational.
What was your undergrad? Whatever I did.
My undergrad was actually in media arts. I majored in like digital media and then digital film and some majors in those.
And then what, couldn't find a job?
No, I got a job. I was
Oh, really?
working in industry before I graduated.
Wow.
Then, well, because at first I was working in film, which I really loved. But my long-term goal was I didn't like instability of freelance. So I was like, I was kind of like planning to end up in an office. I also kind of had this idea when I could do freelance film, it was almost wasn't freelance and film, freelance is about it. So I was like, that's kind of like, it just diversifies like how it's
I was relaxing in the skill set.
or film and web development in the same. When I say web development, also bring PHP. And I think once
That's 2.7 fast.
no, I mean, no, it's just write PHP. We didn't even like do the website.
It's probably a
Programming PHP.
That's gonna be the dumbest thing. PHP is literally personal hosting. That's what it stands for.
I know that. Maybe we did that.
But some debate it specifically for regular websites.
Anyway, we got so much work to do. And then we also made a WordPress site subject.
You made it.
I don't think.
WordPress. Not like WordPress.
Oh, I think you said you made a word processor.
No.
I was like, that's pretty legendary.
No,
Yeah.
I made a WordPress website.
You know,
I actually love WordPress. Like, I'm from United, but you still hate WordPress. I'm sure you get it wrong.
Okay, because
Because you like it has an active marketplace of like people buying and selling extensions, which doesn't happen anywhere else.
like a lot of other Shopify absolutely has. I mean, it's still people that have
That's very
marketplace.
niche. Well, I mean, it's not niche, but like it has okay, it's not niche, but it has like a specific purpose. WordPress can do like anything. We actually for my year one project, I worked with a company that was development company, like a guy who was running this. That he had a struggle creating when he was quite young, and so he ran it for and his he wanted to like create a social network site for stroke survivors. And it was literally a WordPress site, and then you buy this extension, and it turns into it's so you can just do like whatever you want. All right, how are we going over here, team? What was your team name?
Great question.
Team Master.
Team, great question.
Smash it. Oh, you've already done after the question part.
No.
Because it's good exam techniques. Get the ones.
Yeah, just go to the because this is good. This was literally $10. So, go just read.
Well, how did you do for the first? Did you do the first two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's like, it's.
Maybe I'll chuck them up and then we can kind of like do them here just so people on the recording can see. But you just shout out what your answers were. Okay, let's have a look at this. How are we gonna do this? Should we just look at the preview? No, we don't necessarily get the answer. That's fine. All right, first one here. What did we get? The expiry date of a product. A date? Looks good to me. Employee sign-off time. Time or timestamp. Yep. Did someone test positive for COVID? Boolean, yeah, nice. Okay, so we have this Boolean tiny int. Why do we have that? Yeah. So in MySQL specifically, they're actually equivalent data types. There's no special data type for Boolean. It just maps to a tiny int. All right, person's phone number with +1, +61 prefix followed by 9 numbers. 12. Yeah, that seems fine. I mean, if I was doing this, if I knew it was in Australia, I just wouldn't store the +6 one, but that's fine. That's the only option. So global enterprises annual revenue, some big dollar amount. Decimal one? Okay. I'm just going to do what you guys are saying and we can go through and critique them afterwards. All right. Order incremented primary key of table student. Roger 45. Okay. Next one. Person's age. His age is int. Okay. 16-digit long credit card number. Sounds good. 1 out of 4 positions of an academic in a university. Enumerated type, if we can do that, yeah. Video demonstration of an electrical appliance. Blob. What does blob stand for? What does blobs? Lucy, what does blob stand for? What does blob stand for?
Binary.
Binary large object. Okay. All right, so let's send that and just see how we went. All right, send it. Okay. Okay. Oh, not too bad. Not too bad, especially for just the starter swap back. Okay, so we did decimal 62. Why is that not a good option? What's the biggest number that this can store decimal 62? No. So this can actually only store 6 digits. 2 of them are after the dot point, right? So you get 2 decimal points. So this can only store up to $9,999.09. But even if it could store 8 digits, I don't think that's enough to store a multinational corporation's revenue. So it's kind of a giveaway that that's not going to work for that. Okay, good. So what would we have done instead, maybe? I can't click on it, but we can come back. So we'll just remember this one.
Do you want to reference? Because I reckon.
I reckon, which one?
Like a double.
Yeah. Well, I can just, actually, that's a good point, but I can just do this, I think. Yeah. And I'll just look at here. Yeah. Thanks, there. Yeah, good idea. Through the power of opening a new tab. So we're back here for a global enterprise. Which one would we think that is now? So you had the right idea, like you wanted revenue, so there's some sort of dollar amount, so you're probably wanting to store something afterwards. But any other thoughts? Maybe a double, yeah. Right. So if there was a float there, probably wouldn't be big enough either, but a double precision should be big enough. Nice.
Digits after the
Mhm.
drop.
Mhm.
So how does it count? Because the revenue is like some number really big, like
Yeah.
0 million or even more. But double, it's just increase the digit after the.
No. So it just increases the overall precision of the whole number. So it can store bigger numbers as well as what was it? If you look up the MySQL data types, I don't know, integers, float versus double. We could just read the AI summary. Actually, I don't even know how to read this for MySQL. Yeah, not particularly nice to read through that. The Postgres one is much nicer. Either way, it's 64-bit if you do double, so it's able to deal with up to 16 digits, 7 digits for float. So it's variable in terms of how many decimal points or how precise it is decimal point wise.
$1 billion, dollars.
You should be able to, yeah. Oh, we could just do this. Max size. I feel like I probably should know this, but maximum positive value is that can't be right. That's what what. So this is the danger of AI. 53 bits. All right, so 16 digits, right? That's pretty big. You can store a lot. Yeah. So like how much of that is the sort of the mantis or after the decimal point is variable, I think, in terms of its storage. All right, what do we have for auto-incremented primary key of table student? So we did before varchar or varchar. What did you think it is now? If you had to change that. And yeah, it's not really possible, I think, to auto-increment a string like that.
It's not a trick question. It's just okay. Because when we did this, we were thinking just like, oh, everything's gonna be unique, right? No, that's a bad assumption, right? Like, you know how all the questions have options.
Oh, so you were thinking like everything was going to be represented exactly one time?
Yeah, I'm just like, is it like that? Because if it's not, then I'll the answer is different.
Okay, but also the int that we chose was not the correct answer or anything. Yeah, okay. Yeah, tiny int. And why is it a tiny int? It's because unless you've got some really crazy people, you're probably not going to get anyone that's older than, well, is it unsigned for tiny int? But either 128 or 256 is a pretty reasonable max age for a person. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if it's, I can't remember if tiny int is signed or unsigned. If it's unsigned, it'll be 256. That's pretty crazy. But either way, I don't think you're getting a whole lot of 128-year-olds anyway. But also, you would probably not want to store this in a database anyway. Why? Yeah. Go, Lucy. Yeah. It really should be a derived attribute because otherwise you're going to have to calculate that every time someone's birthday rolls around. You're going to have to do an update statement. Yeah, which is pretty dumb. You have to have like a background worker that's updating everyone's ages based on the birth. So you'll still have to store their birthday so you can update their age. Yep. Not particularly useful. Great. All right, let's try this one again. So we'll swap tabs. Do this here. Question 2. What do we get for that? Assuming common sense applies, the greatest introduction.
Assuming common sense.
Yeah.
Okay, there didn't say. I did say it was red, so it's probably wrong.
Which one's what's right?
I think we put. Did we put? I put.
No, we haven't chosen anything yet. This is just the accessibility score.
Okay.
You put C. Okay, well, you want to walk me through that? Why is that?
Student does not have to have any. Yeah, that's option so different.
Yep.
Okay. They got the right. I don't know how, but like that's the main point.
Yeah, okay. So you've identified that this is supposed to be a circle here, right? There's no,
Yeah.
you remember what that constraint was called? Or there's a lack of, there's no participation constraint. Yep, great. And then this over here is a crow's foot. So what is that supposed to? Should we change it there?
Each of them can belong to multiple students.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why does it exist?
Yeah, but that's a good point. So I think the key thing is that an exam can clearly have more than one student. So you'd eliminate anything that doesn't have a crow's foot on this side, right? Because exam having multiple students means that they should have that little crow's foot notation there. So this looks plausible and this looks plausible. But then this side doesn't look great for the reasons that you just said before, which is that a student can have multiple exams. So I'd say that if we're going to go back and revise it, it should be this one, A. Yep. You good? Nice. Okay. Question 3. So you didn't necessarily get up to this one yet? No. Okay. So let's go back to the slides. There is actually a slide on this. We went through that. Yeah, it's fine. This was just potentially a thought process on like, going through, and if you want to highlight stuff or somehow draw on it, you can't really do that easily in a campus exam, but identifying the different components, do some practice with that. So this was these were the 4 options. And so the main difference between each of these was, is booking supposed to be an identifying relationship? And what is the correct constraints between accommodation and person? So the structure for these 4 looks pretty similar, right? But the difference is the constraints on this side and this side of booking, and also whether booking is a weak entity like this, or whether not even a weak entity, but is this supposed to be an identifying relationship, or is it a non-identifying relationship? So I kind of gave it away already. How do you know it's not this one and that it's not supposed to be an identifying relationship?
person and accommodation can exist like without having that relationship.
Yeah, great. But also, even without thinking that deeply about the actual entities, even if I like covered up what these are, this is just wrong because neither of them have a bold line around them. So neither of them are indicated as being a weak entity. So you'd never have an identifying relationship if you don't have a weak entity associated with that. And the only one that would even make sense would be person because that's got an arrow on the side. Sweet. Okay, so we've eliminated C. C has been cancelled. I think we can draw using the power of Zoom. Great. All right, so C is the weakest link. All right, what else doesn't look good about this? Let's go through them one by one. So, like I said, once you sort of digested these, the main difference is participation constraints and key constraints on this side and this side. So, what would you think it will be from accommodation to booking? Do you think you should have a key constraint or a participation constraint? Do all accommodations need a booking? Can accommodations have more than one booking?
Yeah. And they
Okay.
also have like no as well.
Okay, so what does that look like in terms of our constraints? Is it a thick or a thin line? Is it an arrow or no arrow? Thin line. So what does that tell us? So as in, is that a participation constraint or a key constraint? It being a thin line.
Didn't use that word a lot, but like to many, what there?
Yeah. So that's for a key constraint. We're talking about the cardinality is one to many or one to one. Participation constraint is whether it's the words that you said before is like, does it have to have something? Does it have to participate? No. So that means that it's all right. So it's either bold or thin. Which one is it? It's thin. Okay. Right. So that's telling us about the thickness of the line. We're saying it's going to be thin. Okay. That looks good. So what can we eliminate based on that? Wait, so this is being removed because of why? Well, no, that's fine here. That's what this is saying with the thin line. Yeah. Yeah, this is saying that an accommodation can only ever be booked one time, which is not super good. So we'll probably cross that one out. So this one, does that look okay? Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one because a lot of the time you could make an argument that this sort of makes sense depending on how you sort of set up your database. Maybe you don't enter accommodations in there until they have a booking. It's not good design, but particularly like a lot of assignment one models will get that from students and they'll just assume that you're like, why would you add an accommodation if it doesn't have a booking yet? And so we'll pay the marks anyway. So it's not super clear that I would just totally cross this off yet, but it's looking a bit suspicious. At least it doesn't have that arrow because that arrow is clearly broken. Like, why would you ever make it such that accommodation can only be booked one time? So this is a maybe, I'd say. This looks more promising because it's got there's no arrow, and also it's telling us that accommodations might not be booked. So let's look at the other side now, on the person side. So how would you expect person to be related to booking? Can they book multiple times? Do they have to have booked? What are some constraints? They don't have to have booked, but they could book multiple times. Okay, so what's that going to look like? Without looking at these, should it be thick or thin line for participation constraint? Thick means they have to have booked at least once. Thin means they might have booked. Okay, so it should be thin. And then should there be an arrow or should there be no arrow? Arrow is telling us that they can only book one time. No arrow. Okay, so no key constraint and no participation constraint. So which of those two does that map to? Actually, neither, right? And so this is what I was saying before. This kind of is something that could be forgivable. You could still use the database if you have this requirement that a person must have made a booking. Okay. It's probably not ideal because what it means is that you can't like sign a person up without them having made a booking yet, which is kind of dumb. But it is still workable as opposed to this, which is saying a person can only ever make one booking. So you'd have to like create a new person every time they make a booking, and that's probably not very useful. So to be honest, neither of these are perfect. I would have ideally made this a thin line, but this is what I'm going to go with as being workable of those four. The lesser of four evils. And it's very realistic because when you get into any kind of work environment, or if you're just marking assignments in assignment one, there's no such thing as necessarily a perfect model. Yeah, people have to make assumptions. Maybe at one point this was a reasonable assumption. Like you go through the flow of booking and you kind of create an account only at the end, like you don't make accounts beforehand. Who knows? Okay. So are we happy with that? Yep. Lovely. Okay, so I'm just going to get out of this if I can, if it'll let me. Yay. And now the Zoom drawings persist. Let's clear those. Ah. All right, Zoom is coming back. It's been a hot minute since I used a lot of Zoom. Okay, our modeling question 4. Did we do that? Well, I don't think we got up to that, did we? So maybe I'll let you have another minute or two to play around with that. So try doing question 4 and then question 5 as well. What? I don't even care. It's like there's only 3 people here. So I think we just go until we run out of time. Yep.
Oh, you can't turn. Oh, you can't turn. You can't turn. Uh, what's your name? Um,
Yeah. What the if you Google for AHN with a create table set, or create a table statement. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like that. Okay, yeah. That's good.
Yeah. It's better. I should specify quick.
Technically, you don't have to do that because you're trying to make it a private key. which means it's not. Yeah. You can't use what, sir? Yeah, Canvas doesn't have the power of tabs, so they might as well do a bunch of slices. Doing the quiz yourself.
Well, I'm just trying to like.
Walk down. Nah, it's like, I mean, you don't have to do anything. Because I mean, it's literally just like introduce question like that. So it's not like I think that's yeah, you can study your stuff.
It's second ride, like.
I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But from previous semesters, I also have literally like an A3 and it's probably like I'll show you.
We're not on a whiteboard. That's okay.
People don't use that. It's like a
Oh my god,
So,
they're
like,
primary school. That's so good.
These my this is my stats. No. Do you have this? Yes. But this is the LTSA stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Is it design? I think,
Yeah,
I
and
think
then-
that's the issue.
No. I don't know if I necessarily got all the way to the end.
Yeah, I said logistic.
Oh, yeah, and then you
Yeah,
just do it.
yeah.
More. Yeah. And then this will also. Yeah.
Very cool.
No, thank you. I think that, it's like, people, I don't know, for me, I think the process of having a big hospital would, by color that you actually are, like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I was talking to people about like their
Yeah, she was.
exam.
Yeah.
Like I love going more like making chicken. So the idea should be put the bits in there that you're not 100% confident and you sort of revise it down and then use it.
I was like, my biggest tip is do not borrow your friend's note sheet, write your own note sheet, source zero line.
And that's like the nice way of saying the institute is 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
I make that joke, I'm like, turns out with my.
Yeah.
I use.
Look at you cheating if it's all one here. You're invited on the paper and you
Put it in the.
yeah, so chummy, yeah.
I can't. Okay.
Are you gonna keep doing? Do you have a job like that? Doing what?
It's supposed to roll, because I hate so like.
Oh, you moving to Sydney?
I'm with the graduate position, I'm still done this year, so.
Okay, so it's like a short term thing.
It'll be a year like that.
Oh, you know about the, oh, you know
I
your
know
family.
Really?
I got allocated to the.
So your fam's not here? Oh.
I got, yeah.
You part of these Adelaide?
Yeah, he's works at public business, so he has no saying.
So he's just been there the whole time, what you've been here?
Yeah, he just.
Wow.
But
You're
it's
okay.
clear, when we started dating,
Yeah.
I was like 6 months off, signing for 6.
Yeah.
Since they were told to when they like job out, and I was like, you get the whole, it's a year and a half later, I was like, I'm still losing signs. And he was like, okay, so I was like.
That's fantastic, does he come over here a lot? Or do you go?
Yeah, we'll see each other like every 3 weeks. Yeah.
I assume the flights are not that expensive. I've never actually flown,
I-
I would be good, but
Yeah.
so I'm trying to have cheap flights.
I mean, it depends when
It's
you.
a complete show.
It will
Yeah,
split
yeah.
on a school. But I book my flights like really high. It's like, I know that I'm gonna go back to his birthday, he has to it's mine, like. We
Yeah.
I don't know what idea of what we're students want to hear about.
Because like, so I did.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, you
I'm
know, like,
I'm like the anti that. I always book everything like a month before now. Like I'm going to Japan for the year, and I literally just booked the. But I mean, that's actually not always the case.
Well, you can buy the flights.
yeah,
And I don't
fine.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
But surely
I'm
I got
it's-
one friends like.
Huh? Oh, yeah, but you live for it. It's like, am I going to Japan? Like, I don't know. Depends on what like I say.
So last year when I was doing
Like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
My friends all looking.
Yeah.
No, he's had the best life. They're all trying to together, so like
Days.
two.
Wait, so remind me, why can't he move to Melbourne?
There's 10 days.
Okay, you have to be there.
Yeah, he's like, you know, it's the only job he's ever had. And it's like,
What is it?
so it's basically distribution.
Oh, I can very nice comments.
Yeah, so they're kind of exclusive of the press, so they do with China access of all, and they just obviously
Like,
like the back. Oh,
as a business.
yeah. So, yeah.
Surely he could move to studios for business.
Yeah.
So I guess you're counting on you get work once you do 1 year.
Yes. But it's like.
Pretty good, so yeah. But like you might be surprised that if you're.
That's what I am worried about, because I'm like, I have to kind of. And I.
I love the others.
I love
It does have one more. I mean, I find it, there's at least a couple like. Or like, more like you can just like, oh, yeah.
I left off on, but I don't want to.
That's part of the reason why I'm here, because I gotta work from home, so I go like, and doing the tutoring, it's good to like, like, understand stuff, it's, best platforms and, yeah, like, I'm sure you can get something now, I'm sure you can do the same thing.
Yeah, like I have like friends who would draw from home base, like I already have one friend who works for home base shop, she's like, when I have to work hard, I said, travel scarce. She like, having been able to just through us, and I was like,
Yeah.
I love that.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's sort of what I was meaning, like, I just know a lot of people from the company, but, what company? That's the, wow, interesting that you, yeah. Yeah, but then a whole bunch of layoffs. I've got one of my friends who works for who says that as well, so
Yeah.
I would need some, and he survived the layoffs. And he gives one surprisingly. Yeah.
Like in my internship on service the summer, then I knew a number of people like.
Yeah.
I guess my one consolation prize is like, I'm just starting, they can't afford to pay me, and they're like, yeah, sorry. And I know, but that's really like, forget loyalty, like, they'll trust me eventually, I feel that.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, it's good to just make money, but it's not actually, I think the way that you're thinking about it is an interesting way.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily thinking that, because a lot of the AI and how employees are actually.
Yeah.
You. Yeah. Power to people that like sort of have a more traditional, like one of the big four, one of the consulting companies, where they just have no, like they have. Yeah. Basically AI is taking all the work of like ads, and then they have like super like you probably have more than these things.
Devs that work at the.
Oh, yeah, just something.
That can't be based on their like, oh, you know.
No, but I'm saying in terms of like their global strategy, like I think they're.
If you put the basis to it.
Anyway, I hate Hero Salad.
You can just.
You can pay me to.
Diagram. So, yeah, just.
All right, how are we going? Do we want to run through stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, how are we gonna do this? Do you want to like walk me through what you did? Do you want to like plug in your laptop? We can go through your stuff, or how are we gonna? Okay, all right. Or maybe we could write it up on the whiteboard. Yeah. And by we, I mean you guys.
Yeah,
And then I'll look at it and give it a pass or fail. But...
Maybe in that case. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Who's got the best handwriting for this team? Great question.
Team.
Do we have a working marker? Otherwise, Lucy has many.
Well, I didn't bring my passport.
It's gonna be nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good.
I'm not equal.
None of mine.
Okay, so this is the fourth question.
You don't necessarily have to write out all of the columns either. The main thing is the tables and the foreign keys. Yeah. So there's a couple of things just by looking at this, you'd probably be able to tell the quote unquote difficult parts.
Cool. I don't think this is any right, but here we are in a workshop.
That's good. That's what the workshop's for.
Let's get it wrong.
Getting stuff wrong so you don't get it wrong in the exam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just get it all out of your system. Create teacher. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're missing one word there. What is that? Create table teacher. Student.
Hey. Wait. Table.
Yeah. Teacher. Perfect. I won't critique the syntax anymore because that's not really important.
That's fine. And kind of listen. Okay.
So far.
The last part, I actually don't know how to do.
Ooh, what's the last part? Languages.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone remember how to? Well, I assume not because there's only one group. But how do we resolve multi-valued attributes?
That's good.
So this question is kind of two things in one. Right? We're doing a whole translation from, well, what kind of model is this? Is it logical, conceptual, physical? Conceptual, right? So in your head, basically, you're having to do the translation from conceptual to logical, like to the relational model, as in because you're making this into tables, right?
Yes.
And then you also have to know how to write that down as DDL,
Okay.
which is what you're doing right now.
Okay.
So step one is kind of go back to what we did with our translation process. So how do we translate multi-valued attributes to logical?
Do we create a new table?
Yeah, create a table. That's usually the answer for most of these. Is like make one table
Okay.
because it's the only thing we can do.
Okay, so I'm just gonna.
So yeah, leave it out for now. That's good.
Okay, you can key or something. Or key, right? Actually, no, yes.
Foreign key to language.
That's what I was saying.
Well, so where would you have the foreign key to language stuff?
So the language div, like the. Yeah.
Let's just make the tables first, and then we'll worry about that. My strategy would be make all the tables first, and then connect them up with the foreign keys.
Yeah,
that's my hot take.
Okay, that's true. This is.
I join Zoom on my phone. Can I use the cameras and yes, they'll do that. Well, I think the big thing is similarities in terms of substance. Oh, for the recording. Yeah, recordings. Yeah, because it only gets one I think it should be both. Okay, yeah, I'll just do that.
So you were maybe a couple times.
Are you sure it was bags? It's just pop up.
Yeah, sure. You can use one of these.
That's so much.
Oh,
No, it's just-
the stand is.
Yeah. That'd probably be better. I'll use that.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Alright, so you got three tables.
No. There's some stuff, some stuff I'm like. I have some questions, but yeah, we can start.
Oh, we got questions? Yeah. So three tables. Anyone got any comments on that before we keep going? So we said there was one more table we're gonna add, right, for the languages. Yeah, might as well. So does anyone remember there was one other thing that we were looking for in the conceptual model that might result in additional tables as well?
Relationship tables.
Yeah, so what was the condition that needed to happen for those to, yeah, the need to
Is the weak drop entity thing?
Not quite, no. Yeah.
It's like,
Many to many, yep, so we have many to many. Okay, do we have any many to manys here?
Probably not, because that'd be really annoying.
What does a many to many look like?
So,
Not necessarily thin, just two sides with no arrows. Okay, so neither of these, this has an arrow on this side, this has an arrow on this side. So we don't have any many to manys, so we won't have any extra tables from that. So we're gonna have one table per conceptual entity, and then an extra table for the multiple attribute, which is good. That checks out.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Surely you're an eraser and that. We're going there for back again. You think you've got a lot of margin? So. What's the
wait, so does the eraser not have any fabric as well?
That's fine.
Oh, that's good.
I don't understand how it does that. Yeah, literally. Like, how can it be designed to?
Wait, we have tissues here.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was about to.
Oh.
That's fine. I don't know how the eraser works. No, I don't know. I also probably need to push it. Okay, what I have right now, please proceed.
All right, let's go. So, anyone else got any other thoughts before we add on to it? So the number of tables looks really good. Excellent. We've got overall the syntax looks like it's going the right direction. Good.
Okay.
Primary key should be after the definition of the name and the type, but that's again, we don't really care that much. Like you might lose a small number of marks if your syntax isn't perfect.
Okay.
But we're mostly looking at the structure that you've got here. So like the number of tables looks good. The fact that you've tried to give them each their primary keys and the correct thing looks good. Yeah, so let's go through. We need to add the foreign keys now.
Yeah.
There is so the primary key, the other thing is for this language table.
Yeah, please.
We've got your language ID, which doesn't directly exist. If you wanted to do like a lookup table for languages, you might need to make like an extra table with like language ID and the name. But we'll just keep it simple. All we want to do is say person A speaks, French and English and Chinese. So we just want to be able to have that like sort of effectively many to many, like one person can have many languages.
Okay.
So what should we put in the language table to be able to store that?
Something that tracks the. No, don't worry.
Okay, so we're gonna have just the name of the language that they speak. We're not gonna try and dedupe it or have like a lookup table. So we'll just say, the stream lang name. Good. Bar chart 45 or whatever, more than fine.
Okay.
Okay, and then we need to also have the ID of the person that speaks that language. Yeah, so they're written down. And so you use the same data type as before, int. Right? All right, now both of those, they are going to be part of what? Because again, every table needs a primary key. So what is the primary key of the language table going to be?
Primary composite key.
Right, so it's going to be both of those. Why is it both of them? Not just one.
It's not unique.
Yeah, so obviously if you make it just this, problem's going to be multiple people can speak French, right? That's not going to work as a primary key. This is also not going to work. Why is that not going to work?
Multiple, if someone speaks multiple languages, the idea.
Yeah, that's the whole reason we have such a table. If this could be the primary key, then all we would need to do is just chuck this directly in the teacher, right? You wouldn't need to store multiple. Okay, so in order to make it such that one person can speak multiple languages, we need both of these to be part of the primary document. Sweet. Okay, so they both should be part of the primary key. That's good. And then one other thing after you do that as well, we need to add the foreign keys in all of these tables too. So which of those is going to be a foreign key?
There's an ID.
Yes, exactly. So that's going to be foreign key that references teacher ID. That's fine. Person ID references teacher.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So, and then brackets ID. Done. Done.
And the thing, maybe it's like this, it's really long.
Language spoken. Yeah, perfect. So this is going to be primary key. Yes, a primary key, and then you just say we do a foreign key. Depending on which database management system you have, I think you can also do what you've done. But it's better to have personally just separate the foreign key constraint out. Just do it. Yeah, like that. I think that's the useful point. Because you definitely need to say what it's referencing. You can't just write foreign key. You have to say the foreign key is pointing to plus. Yeah. So you might be able to just put it all in one line, but you have to definitely say reference to something. All right. Sweet. So what other foreign keys are we going to have? Still missing foreign keys in the other table. The other tables. So we need to somehow represent this relationship and this relationship. And by the way, we also have this relational attribute that needs to go somewhere too. Okay. But I already said you don't need to have extra tables for that. So we're going to think about it again. So both of these relationships, they get represented by foreign keys.
Okay.
In conceptual.
Okay.
Sorry, in logical. So where are we going to put those? There's only two places we need foreign keys. Which table do they go in? Do they go in? Yeah, the rest of the room. Help them out.
There you guys. There you guys.
So we'll give you some options. Okay, so for undergoes that relationship, right? Is the foreign key going to go into performance review or is it going to go into teacher? Is teacher going to have a foreign key to performance review or is performance review going to have a foreign key to teacher?
Performance review has foreign key to teacher.
Right, why?
Because the performance review has to belong to a teacher.
Yes.
And it's kind of identified by a teacher.
Yes, good point. So it's a weak entity, like we said before. The key thing though is when you're looking and deciding which side am I going to put the foreign key on, you look for the key constraints, right? So you look for the arrow, and that kind of makes sense intuitively because this is saying that a performance review can only ever be related to one teacher. So it's really easy to just make one column and say, for the performance review, which teacher are we talking about? You can't do that the other way. Because one teacher might have had, a bajillion performance reviews, lots of different forms. So you have to make a whole bunch of columns for that. Okay. So we're going to put a foreign key in the performance review. Great.
Good.
So you'll need to add a column for it first, like make just a normal column for like teacher ID. And then you separately wire that up as being a foreign key afterwards. That's good. You won't lose it. The one good thing about doing the exam is because it is done in the Canvas IDE, we won't spell check it. We won't try and run it.
Two good ones.
Yeah.
How many questions do we have in our exam?
I don't know the exact number, but it's going to be more than this practice exam. So this one is kind of a little bit lightweight. It's like a 2-hour exam instead of 3-hour exam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean, by the time you get there, you'll be flying through this. You like stuff. So don't worry, I have confidence.
Struggle now, struggle now.
Struggle now, not later. Yeah. Okay, so we've done one of the relationships. What about the other one, the employees relationship? Is that foreign key goes in the school side or it goes in the teacher side? Teacher, why teacher side?
Teacher, teacher, belongs to the relationship.
Yeah. Well, the relationship, yeah, but which part of the relationship, the constraints?
It's the teacher, we only teach one school and we are.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the key constraint on the teacher side. So the teachers can only be at one school. So it's easy to just put in the teacher what school they're teaching at. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just think about it, if you had to do it on the school side, you have to make like 100 columns for 100 different teachers. And you don't even know if the 100's enough if the school grows.
Double is very big for that small. Yeah. So.
Right. That's good. Okay, so there's a few more things that we haven't thought about yet.
Okay.
First one is nullability of certain attributes. So in general, I would kind of assume that most things are not null. Like a school should have a city, school should have a number of students, etc. I can't remember. But in the question, it says you do not need to specify whether the fields are null or not null. So saved by that. But there's one other thing that we haven't quite covered yet, which is any ideas? Well, start date. That's a good one. Actually, so there are two. So I would have lost the point for that. Maybe. Start date. So that is a relational attribute, right? So that's an interesting one. If it was its own table, if it was many to many, it would have to go in the table. But it's not many to many. So where is it going to go? How did we resolve the employees? What do we do with the foreign key? We put it on the teacher side, right?
So it's also going to teacher side.
Also go teacher side, yeah. So it sort of just comes with wherever the relational foreign key is. You don't have to worry about writing out. Just squeeze it in there. It's fine. The big ones are okay.
Okay.
That's good.
There's also articles.
Yes, there are.
Although it was, start date wasn't.
Really?
Yeah, I just.
Ooh.
Wow.
I didn't set that up last semester. Can you check that that's in the canvas with answers? Yeah. Lovely. All right. So start date. Excellent. One other thing. This is the original thing I was thinking about. Is so we had a weak entity there, right? We've got performance review. What did that mean that we had to do special? So actually, let me have a look at performance. So you've got primary key of date. That's good, but we need one extra thing because it's a weak entity. What is that?
Ideas.
I don't remember.
What is a weak entity? Effectively, what was the kind of definition of what a weak entity was?
The key from the.
Yeah, it does have the primary key.
Yeah, it doesn't have its own unique primary key that it has. It's identified via the relationship, right? So that's why you don't just make the entity bold, you also have to make its relationship bold because it's identified via that relationship. It gets its ID from the fact that it's related to a particular teacher. So what that actually means when you create a relational database is that you have to make the foreign key part of the primary key as well. So the foreign key was saying, okay, this performance review was for this teacher. So you have to make this now also part of your primary key. So I didn't say anything. Write it afterwards, don't worry.
Wait, what?
So normally, so this is the syntax for writing primary key is just the same as this, and then write primary key after it. So you still need to write like date, date time or whatever, and then primary key after. And then for teacher ID, you've just got to add primary key.
Okay. Good.
Right. It's good. That.
Yeah.
It's good. So it's just like same as this, and then you just add the primary key after, and then a comma at the end.
Good.
Lovely. So then modify the teacher ID to also be a primary key. So you don't do erase that. Great. Just stick that. No, that's fine. Just primary key. You've already made it a foreign key. Yeah. No, it's all good. That's good. Yeah, better do it now. Primary key. Lovely. All right. And that is basically the definition of a weak entity, right? Having a primary foreign key, it means it's a weak entity, right? I think that looks mostly pretty good. I didn't really check the rest of the things. You see anything, Lucy, that you don't like?
Sorry.
Already rating enum 10, yeah. I think that looks pretty functional to me. Again, the main things are making sure that you had the primary foreign key, you had an extra table for languages, and that these are both part of, so these should both be part of the primary key as well. So just add primary key after that for those two. And that one is a foreign key. And that you resolve that correctly by bringing over your start date here, and you've got your foreign key set up nicely. Excellent. So this is a good question because it tests DPL, but it actually tests your ability to resolve a conceptual model to logical. All right. Happy with that? Well, actually, all the way to physical because you're choosing data types in DDL as well. I'm not going to go through the answers, I guess, because we pretty much just went through the answers, but that looks, I mean, we've got 4 tables, right, with roughly the same sort of setup. Primary foreign key here. Teacher has the start date and whatever in it, so we did a good job. Well done. That's really well done. Excellent. All right, did we do question 5 as well? Okay, what do we have for that? Question 5. This is a tricky question. It's supposed to be tricky. So what did you guys write for these options? Yeah. So first one was no. Okay, why no? Great. Yeah, so it's there. What was a super key? Does anyone remember what a super key is versus just a normal key or a candidate key?
You need any ID title category. That'd be fine. I would assume.
Yeah, it would be fine. Yeah. Yeah. So there's always what's called the trivial super key, which is literally everything. Is that because if that wasn't a super key, then the database wouldn't let you put in 2 rows, right? So it has to be unique between if you choose everything. But a super key is something that some of its attributes you could pick out, and that would become a candidate key. But then maybe it's got some extra junk in there as well, which is why it's like super. It's bigger than what you need necessarily. Okay, so you can definitively say this is not a super key because this set repeats for this row and this row. There's 2 movies with the same title, it. So obviously that doesn't work as a candidate key because it's non-unique just within this data that we're able to look at. Lovely? Lovely. Okay, is the set ID title a super key of this table? Yes. Who thinks yes? I just put my hand up for everything, by the way. It's not necessarily me. I'm being impartial. Okay, who thinks no? You put your hand up for no? Okay, why no?
You don't say the best one, guys.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the object. Okay, sorry, at the options. You've got no, yes.
Sorry, I meant possibly need more.
And then you possibly need more information. Okay. So why can you not actually say definitively that this is definitely a key or a super key? It's because this is just a snapshot of some data that exists. It doesn't actually tell you exactly what the functional dependencies are. we haven't outlined those to you, right? So there could be another row that just went in this ... that violated this. Intuitively, okay, it would be terrible database practice to have a column called ID, which was not a primary key, but you could do it. Like the database wouldn't actually have a problem with you doing that, okay? So you can't just look at it and count on this name being well designed. You have to be told what the functional dependencies actually are in this table, okay? So why is this not no though? Why have I not said no to this? Yeah.
It could be like, it could.
It could be. Yeah, you don't know, right? For this one, you know that the answer is no because we could literally see here that there is a counterexample. Okay? This is definitely not no from what we're able to see, but we're saying, I don't know. It could be no or it could be yes. It depends on what the underlying dependency is in this data. Okay? So this table is just us filling in the relation for valid tuples effectively that we have. Like we're saying that these are all an example of a book. But we don't necessarily have every book that exists on the entire planet in this table at any point in time, right? So you can't tell just by looking at it that this is a super key. We would have to tell you the dependencies that exist, like ID determines all this other stuff, and then you would know that ID is a primary key, and then it would be a super key. Okay, so this is a tricky question. Last one here. Is the set ID title a candidate key of this table? So candidate key instead of super key.
Possibly.
Yep.
But maybe like there's like a 60%.
Yep. So the interesting thing about this is what's the difference between a super key and a candidate key there?
Yeah.
The junk. Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So does that mean that this is definitely not a candidate key because it's got stuff in there like title, which is clearly duplicated, or is it still okay? Is it still possibly a candidate key? Why?
Because that example.
Yeah.
Counts it.
It counts it for the title. So you're saying because there's duplicates of the title. Okay. So that this is a really tricky question, and the answer here is again actually possibly need more information because because it's fine that if some of the primary key, imagine that is actually the key, right? ID and title. It's okay if some of it is repeated. Imagine, like go back to here, right? We just had if someone knows multiple languages, their name is going to show up multiple times in that column. That's actually fine, right? So imagine that. For some weird reason, ID plus title, it actually could be the candidate key or could be the primary key for this table. Maybe for some reason it's okay to reuse ID as long as the title is unique for some reason, okay? Maybe there's like sub chapters to the book or something and we store in a particular way such that the ID spans like a whole series of books and then each of the each of the books within that series has its title. And so it's the ID of the series plus the title of the book that's unique. We don't know just from looking at it, is the point. Okay. All right. So hopefully I didn't break anyone's brain too much, but good reminder of super key and candidate key and what it means to be a key versus what the data is here, right? So again, the key, the property of this set being a key is related to its functional dependencies, right? It's not related to what you can see in this data, but this could tell us that some functional dependencies are definitely not there. All right, so next section is SQL and relational algebra, and you'll definitely get something like this in the exam. So I think we'll just keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What?
I'm going to finish.
Just to finish it? Well, I mean, it depends on what everyone's schedule is. I don't have anything on until like...
I was talking about this. It's like,
oh, don't do SQL? Okay.
I'm assuming you're going to just pick out a topic.
Okay, that's fine. Does anyone want to pick a topic then? So are we relatively comfortable with SQL and relational algebra? Let's at least just see what's in here and then we'll skip by, all right? So because we did just a few slides just to do discuss the exam contents. So generally, how this works for the SQL section in the exam is we'll give you the same case study that you got for assignment 2. Generally, this is how it's always happened, so I assume it will happen again. Right? You'll get the same schema, and then you'll get 3, maybe 4 SQL questions. Okay. And they'll be sort of easier than the hardest parts of assignment 2. But other than that, it's just like you're doing a mini assignment 2. Okay. So it's nothing really new in terms of assessment strategy. And the only other thing to note is, again, we don't care so much about small mistakes in the syntax. If you forget exactly the order of something, it's not super important. If you forget to, rename your subqueries with an as thing, like MySQL wouldn't like that, but we're fine. We don't care. So focus mainly on understanding the high level concepts of SQL, and going through assignment 2 is basically the perfect practice for this, because it'll warm you up again with the schema. So you'll be really familiar with that. So in the exam, you'll go right back into thinking about researchers and their observations or whatever. You won't have to read through the case study again and try and remember all the foreign keys and whatever. So yeah, just basically redo assignment 2 to practice this part of the exam. And there'll also be a couple of relational algebra questions as well. So for instance, what we have here, relational algebra in general is not too difficult, I think, because we stop short of the difficulty that we reach in SQL, right? We just have some very simple like joins, selection and projection. We don't do anything more complicated than that, really. It's kind of this level or easier maybe. So yeah, just go through that as well. Make sure you understand that. Again, we can come back to this at the end if you like. So I am just gonna, unless anyone else wants to stop and cover something, we'll go towards the end, but then we'll just cover at least the sort of exam prep stuff to go through. So again, you'll probably get like a multi-choice question for relational algebra. We're not going to get you to type out relational algebra or draw it, so that'll be good. Query processing and optimization. I think this was, Lucy, you wrote these exam tips before. Yeah. But I mean, it's effectively just, yeah.
Track your units, you'll lose track of everything.
I'm assuming people have done at least one physics subject, maybe? Yeah? Okay, because you would never forget this if you've done even one physics subject. You'll lose so many points just for not running your units in physics. Well, I did anyway. I was a slow learner. So, yeah, and then I guess this helps as well. Try and actually learn the content. So there are a bunch of formulas, right? There's heaps of formulas in that section, to be honest. And if you just approach it as a rote learning exercise, it's maybe a little bit overwhelming. But all of the formulas make sense at the end of the day. None of them are really insanely deep. Okay. So they all can be fully comprehended if you spend the time. It's just whether that's worth your effort when you're revising. But for instance, it'll make things like this 2 in front make sense in the sort merge join formula, right? So you won't just have to memorize why is there a 2 there, or in the hash join, why is there a 3? There's these random, constants in front. Where are they coming from? Where do these come from? Where is this 2 from? Anyone know? We had this 2 times n passes times n pages. Why is there a 2 there? And bonus, what is n passes? What does that even mean? Yeah?
N passes will be given from the
N passes will be given from the question. Yes, exactly. So that will save you having to calculate that. Technically, you can actually calculate n passes, and we used to do that in the subject, but then we made it easier. So what it is have we seen merge sort before? Yeah, we've seen merge sort. Okay, so everything in database is basically functions around the assumption that you can't fit everything in memory, right? So when you want to sort something, you can't just do, one of your 1001, like load everything in, sort it in memory, and we're good. You have to do what's called external merge sort. So merge sort externalizes very well. You bring effectively like a chunk in, you sort it, and you store it back on disk. You bring another chunk, sort it, and then put it back on disk. Okay. And then you have to sort of bring in little bits, whatever you can fit in memory, and merge those back together. Okay. And you have to do that recursively a few times. So we don't get you to calculate how many times you have to revisit the same data, as in bring in a chunk, sort it, and then kind of zip it up and do that multiple times. We'll tell you that's what n passes represents. But that's the same concept that also applies for, or it makes you understand why hash joining is effective and how that works. And it also kind of explains what this 2 is. So this 2 is, did you have a suggested solution for what that 2 was?
That will give it a sense.
Huh?
You need to at least read no, read twice, no.
You do what, sorry?
Read in.
Yeah, read in. So that's one of the 2. What's the other one of the 2?
Output.
Yes. Okay.
Read in sound.
Yes. So when you're doing this merge sort, you have to first go get the chunk of data, sort it, and then you got to put it somewhere else. So you got to write it back out to disk while you get another chunk and put it in memory and sort that new chunk. Okay. So you actually have to pay. That's why it's called IOs, because it's inputs, like reading, and then also outputs, put it back to disk as well. Okay, so once you kind of look a little bit more into how these work, the formulas are very simple. But again, if you don't have time, if you're just cramming and you got to get it done, then you can just sometimes memorizing is the better temporary option. Okay. Otherwise, yeah, it's a little mini assignment 3. So hopefully we're kind of comfortable with that relative to some of the other content it's been a while since we've been through. So again, we can go back through this, but there's lots of practice for this on the LMS, I guess. Normalization. Okay. Did you want to do this, or you wanted to skip to the database sort of sundry bits?
Census. Okay.
I've retaken the subject, so
You're done.
we can skip the normalization because it's relatively simple.
Okay. Skip it. All right, then I guess we shall skip. So again, normalization. Actually, that's just a summary of what it is. But the questions that you'll get in an exam usually in the past have been you get a case study or a table, or maybe 2 tables, but usually just one table, and you're asked to bring it potentially to a particular normal form. So if it's in whatever, like a lot of the time, we'll actually ask you, which normal form is this table in? And then please get it to 3rd normal form or whatever. Okay. So again, it's sort of similar to some of the 2 questions that you've seen, but you get something like this. And this is obviously not great database design, because you can tell just intuitively that there are a bunch of couplings that are going to exist here, right? So you'd say you're repeating, for instance, this book, or the name of whatever. Is this books? I don't even know. It doesn't give you a title. But whatever this is being repeated by J.K. Rowling a bunch of times, or movies, because it was ordered multiple times, or this prod ID is here, and that's leading to duplication across these here, right? So intuitively, again, normalization is kind of us coming around back to the start of the subject and trying to justify why our initial entity-driven modeling was a good way of storing data in a relational database, right? The problem with whoever designed this is they'd probably spent too much time in spreadsheets, and they've crammed everything into just one big sheet. And they don't really understand the drawbacks to having this data here duplicated. But you wouldn't even run into this problem if you'd kind of done it properly in the first place. Because this, to me, is screaming out that it wants to be a table, right? Whatever these 4 things are, like book or movie or whatever, it should just be a table, right? So you wouldn't ever get in this position where everything's crammed into one if you'd done it properly from the beginning anyway. But we're just going backwards and fixing all of those issues and trying to justify it in terms of the functional dependencies. So explaining, different types of functional dependencies that exist, partial or transitive, and saying that they shouldn't be there in the final 3.5 normal form. All right, so we can go back to that if we got time, but otherwise, all right, data warehousing, yes or no?
I think, yeah. Fine.
You want to start here? Okay, everyone else happy with that? Okay. All right, so data warehousing, Oh, okay. Well, this is again, we got 2.1s. So basically, just try the question with your group, and then we'll discuss it together again. That's pretty much what we're gonna do. Yeah. The other perk of not having to just scream out dot points for 2 hours.
It's just, you know.
More interactive and also the. You want to just save time and do it on the whiteboard as well?
Okay, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I think it was just draw the model, was it, or was it?
Someone just literally A, B, C.
Oh, actually, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just do it on there.
It's okay.
If the event gets pizza or not.
What do you?
Is
Well,
that
that's
like
like
a
a
list thing?
That was mostly because they had it beforehand. We had a lot of time trying to sort of get some patients on the.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't care. I don't really want any government, but.
We just, yeah. Actually, we should workshops. Yeah, I don't think it was as good as.
I mean, only like 8 months as that.
Unfortunately, what they don't get from the should that we joined, so that's gonna be a reference back to the previous live stream, so they're gonna have to be open up. So it's like everything really it'll be a quiet study space, but it is AOA on how to do this. I'll actually bring up the resources there.
So I would just leave it on.
And also.
It doesn't really.
I think it's almost as helpful, honestly, just having like a structured kind of session where you're like, everyone gives to just something. I think it's just throw a chocolate, it's just, then you can just break up and stuff with people.
Yes.
And I think a session where it's like going through everything is only, I think, useful for like the exams and stuff. Yes, which recently you could do in 30 minutes. So this is probably what's going to exam, focus on this. We're going through the whole subject in 2 hours. Right?
Yeah, we could just like we just haven't really. We haven't fully considered it because I'm fitting on all the subjects that we do this 3 days span quite intensive, so I think to study some of that maybe something that's there.
Yeah, well, it's hard because you guys don't have to dedicate space so there. I don't know. Yeah, it feels like your club should be big enough that it gets like a group or something.
Talks with faculty mentioning 19, aren't they renovating some buildings somewhere? They're like, yeah, but we finished that already.
Well, I don't know what they're doing with the whole student evening, but
Like, which one is that, right?
Oh, the student meetings, that's what it's like.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah.
no, it's in like the northwest corner of the, like right here on Quad. There's just a giant concrete building. I don't know what it does now.
You say you don't do anything.
Yeah, I did a whole there. It was like it was 6-story building. Yeah, because now the student building is the whole FDIT building. And it's got 2 levels. Yeah, so I think at some point you'll renovate that.
Do you like the exams? Like, do you like the exams?
Everything on this one, so RB is a nice building, but it got like
Oh, do you have any? Oh.
This is the first time,
Is it?
this semester.
Yeah. Stop that.
Is that still your old laptop or did you get a new one?
That's why I was going, so I just died.
Oh, yeah.
This is the
Oh, it is.
the first time I have exams in university.
Yeah. I am determined to get this laptop to the end of my masters, because then I'm gonna frame the case and retire. Is it 3 hours? Oh, yeah.
It's only 3 hours.
Yeah.
All the rest of
I gotta stop saying out loud. I have really stuff. I'm so sad. Oh, yeah.
Siri lecture. Let's see if we can do that.
Well, what was the thing? Ellison and say.
Okay.
How'd you guys get?
What did you go?
How did you get?
I haven't kind of skipping this.
We said-
I think there is probably.
Start based on geometric knowledge.
Just to.
Hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, this one even looks kind of like a star. It's got like 5 points. Another giveaway is that we probably won't ask for Snowflake just because we only use it for stars.
Yeah. I don't think
I think they only just like what's going.
Snowflake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it show that it's?
It's kind of just to say that this is not literally the only way of doing it.
Was it?
Because like if you're not on a subject, it's in the home use.
I think it was like to hear that you learn SQL. And if you are, I don't know.
You can move the chair.
I go back to language language as well. Perspective on it. Yeah, it's schema.
Yeah, you will. Stars, yeah. Yeah.
Little stuff like everyone uses like the Tableau.
Yeah, fine.
I do that anyway. Like,
Yeah, it's the same geometry. It kind of looks
Those are
like
like-
it does look like a snowflake, I guess, as well.
Yeah, that's good.
surely you just like.
No, I'm saying like the shape one.
See,
Yeah,
it's
you imagine that's a snowflake.
Oh, you got this.
But no, you're right.
I think I guess it depends if somebody to be honest. Who's not doing nonsense.
I feel like we did teach them quite a lot. More so you can deal with this. Like I'm never going to be saying it's passionate as an ever.
Maybe one more minute. It'll get this.
Okay.
Also like yeah, when will I need to
When you're building a chess engine.
Oh, and I'll be doing that. I'll be doing. That is,
It's so.
yeah. I looked at the exam. It's just, yeah, I mean, yeah. Did you go to lunch?
Until like week 7. But at that point, I was like, oh, so I didn't go.
I'm your poor tutor.
I
Sit there, chilling.
Yeah, our MHU, it's like to start like the last like
was gonna say that you Alicia.
Yeah.
Actually went until like week 3.
Yeah.
She
I
said,
mean, it's really inevitable in subjects like that because they'll have you have like a bunch of assignments and things going on.
Yeah.
there's way more.
I'm surprised I went to. I only
Because I mean, there's no assignment for it at the end.
I went.
Well, I think I went to.
Or is it just because they're available?
Yeah, the ML.
I feel like I was ML
Yeah.
It
but like
makes sense, yeah.
for like the second half of the subject.
I can't even remember
Every week, like the first 20 minutes, I was like with the students. Yeah, that's not the tutor.
Yeah. They split it like content and grade.
No, my tutor focused on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do they have 2-hour tutes?
Wait, well, it is 2 hours.
So for 2 hours of slides.
Wait, no, it says.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and she gave us the
Yeah,
slide.
it's just a question.
I had the
Oh, we had her once.
Yeah.
She filled it and like she began, she's like, I went PhD.
Oh, yeah, that's the
I
first week.
engineering."
That's when.
Yeah.
It is hard to kind of get a balance though, because especially as it goes later in the semester, people will be falling behind on stuff and still come into tutorials. So if you do just launch into questions directly,
Oh, yeah.
just people like people we see.
Yeah.
Not only this week's lecture, but I have seen last week's lecture and maybe the one before. Like, okay, you gotta kind of walk into it. Working in groups is kind of the solution to all those problems because someone hopefully has seen the lectures, so they can kind of be the micro teacher.
And we do.
So everyone gets a boost because they get to teach, so they
Yeah.
level up a little bit, and then everyone else is just listening because they stop.
So it was so bad, because like, when you have that, I don't see like before.
Alright, let's get through minutes up.
And you're like, that, the last time you went to that big place.
Okay, we'll discuss together. This is all this stuff. It's a lot of stuff. Down to data warehousing. Okay, so I have forgotten everything to do with data warehousing, so I'm gonna need your help. What's the answer to this one?
First one.
Yeah, because it looks like a star. Okay, so why is it not a snowflake schema? What was the difference between a star schema and a snowflake schema? What, sorry?
Be like the bench edge tape. I'm gonna call them edge takers because that's the correct term, right? So
Dimensions, yeah. Close enough, yeah.
dimensions.
The pointy star bits.
Be more good at normalized.
Yeah, exactly. So you have like sub dimensions coming off of them or mini dimensions coming off of them. Great. And that would probably be to solve any normalization issues that exist. Great. So were there any normalization or clearly non-normalized things here? Maybe these two are kind of hierarchy. And then these two, yeah. So if it was snowflake, you'd have another table here, which would be mapping the subcategory to its category, right? So this table would just have subcategory. We're kind of doing some normalization revision at the same time. You'd cross out type category, put subtype category here, and then that would link to a lookup table that tells you the category of the subtype category, right? And why is that? It's because these two are coupled, right? If you know that, I'm working on the assumption that if you know the subtype, you know the super type, right? So I think we had an example in tutorials, which was like hardware store. So if you know that the product subgroup is like hammers, then you know that its super group or its main group is like hardware, right? So you don't need to put both of these in here. Anyway, so it's not snowflake. It's not snowflake, so we can cross these out. And it's definitely one of those two because we've seen this before. It's a star schema. Great. All right, what we do here? Let's go. First one, amount. Where was amount in this?
It's flat.
Okay, great. It's a fact. It's in the fact table, and it's just a standard attribute. So we're going to call that a fact. Business. Business. Where is business? It's a dimensional table, right? So that's the name for this. It's a dimension. Oh, oops, sorry, I gotta look at the next one before I go back up. Bank expenditure. Where is that? It's the name of the fact table. Yep. It is the fact table. Country. It's over here. What is that? Yep, so it's a dimensional attribute. What are we going to call that? We'll just call it an attribute. Great. Type category. Where is that? That's here. What's that? Another attribute. Great. And then customer making a purchase. That's not going to show up here, right? That's why it's quoted like this. So what is that? Business process. Great. Yeah. It's great when you have drop downs like this. So that is what the model is supposed to be organized around, right? So you're not designing a data warehouse to sort of encapsulate every possible entity combination and all the relationships they could have. You're designing this specifically to store historical information about some business event that's happened or some business process, right? So the event is this, right? Customer making a purchase. Lovely. Okay, so which of these queries could be answered using the above model? So maybe if I open this here, we can do some fancy footwork. Close this.
Yeah.
Oh, where are we? Too far.
Yeah.
All right. First one here. Can we do this? What was the total expenditure amount by customers with a high income bracket between these dates here, June 1st and June 30th? Yes or no? So what kind of things do we have to look for to be able to answer this query? So total expenditure, where is that going to be? Where? It's the fact table, right? So that's what we're trying to kind of select out of the model most of the time is going to be in the fact table. So we're looking for the amount that they've sort of spent, right? So probably that sounds good to me. We can see how much they spent in a particular sale. So we can do that. Okay, and then we're going to filter effectively using the dimensions to only include sales where the customers had a high income bracket. Do we store that information? Is that kept somewhere? Great. Okay, so we've got that. Excellent. And then we've also got to only, we're filtering such that we're only including sales between these dates. So can we do that? Yes. All right. So we've got the granularity to go down to the day level. And in fact, actually, we can go down to the hour level if we wanted to. So it's even more granular than needed. But you got to check that, because if this model only went down to month or quarter, if it was like a financial model and they only cared about which quarter the sale happened in, then you might not be able to answer this query. Okay. So we'll say yes for that. And I think that's the correct answer. This one here. Are customers over the age of 40 more likely to make purchases in Melbourne Central or Melbourne Emporium? And both of them are located in the Melbourne CBD locality. All right. So basically what we'd be doing is we'd be doing a count effectively when we're saying, are they more likely? So we're going to compare the pair. Count of the number of sales that have occurred for customers over the age of 40 at Melbourne Central location versus the count of sales for customers over 40 at the Emporium location. So effectively, you're going to have to do 2 queries to do this. Okay. Can we do this?
No,
Why?
because of the location, because we only have the location region, but these are put in Bolton city. We cannot figure out which, like.
Yeah. So we don't have anything specific about the particular store's location other than its locality / suburb. Okay. So you can't differentiate between sales that happened at Emporium and sales that happened at Central. So it's not going to be able to be done, unfortunately. We do have the ability to do just filter to customers over the age of 40, I think. We've got date of birth, great. But yeah, this is where we fall flat, is this year. So this is going to be a no. All right, customers that have spent more on purchases with a type of gamer gear than food.
The last question, the answer is no, because we don't have the exact minutes.
Yep, that's fine. That's definitely no, because we don't go down to the minute. Great. What about this one?
Yes.
You say yes? Okay, so we need to find, we would again be doing 2 queries. We'd find for each customer how much they spent on gamer gear and how much they spent on food. There's 2 separate SQL queries. And we can filter by type because the purchase type is here. And this is kind of an interesting one. We're going to assume that the customers table is granular enough to store every single customer uniquely. Technically, I don't think it says in the question. And if it was the case that you had 2 customers with the same name, the same gender, the same customer account type, same income bracket, and same date of birth, they would collapse into one row. Right, so if you had 2 Coltons born on the same day, and we both, same gender, same type of account, same income bracket, that was like the super ad. Then we would actually just become one row. So you technically couldn't differentiate between the 2 of us. But this is pretty specific, so I'm going to say yes for that, right? Because it goes down to date of birth. So ideally, we would add like another unique identifier in here, just to make sure they never combine. Okay, makes sense? Yeah.
Just a question. So if that case happens, then who would consider that?
In the exam, we'd try and be more specific. Yeah. Well, so looking at this, you could probably, like I said, it would be highly unlikely that all of these things line up, but you'd want to specifically distinguish that they are different if you were trying to do this yourself. So you'd have to have like a customer ID, which is not just a derived attribute. You'd have to have like customer reference number or something as an attribute inside of that. Yeah, some other domain knowledge that tells you that a customer is unique from another customer. Does that make sense?
Wait, isn't it ID of?
No worries. See ya. Thanks for coming. So what was it?
ID.
That's a good point. So but every dimension gets this sort of automatic primary key is effective. This is going to be kind of like an auto incremented thing that just exists. It's not in the domain itself. It's not like this is not like an external thing like the customer's ID, just like this is not necessarily an external thing, the business ID, or an external thing like the time ID, unless it tells you in the question that it is, in which case that would solve all of our problems.
So you're saying there should be like a reference number for a customer that is getting extracted from the showings. Yeah,
it's something that in real life is used to distinguish the customers, right? So if I or even from like some other separate database that you use to distinguish your customers. Like maybe in the real database, I'm customer 1 and you're customer 2. So we should put that like external database number ID in here as well. And that would make sure that even if we have the same name and the same income and whatever, we don't get treated as the same customer, the same row in the customer table. Because ultimately these tables are aggregates. They're not necessarily representing one instance of a particular thing. Right. Just like this is kind of every row in this table, it's representing every instant in time that has the same year, month, day, and hour. But that's kind of, every second in that hour collapses down to one row. And this is saying like we just saw before, every store that falls into this location gets collapsed into one row in that table. Okay, so I'm going to say yes for this, but I'm actually not sure if the answer was no. I can't remember. Because it's a little bit ambiguous. We'll see how we did. Whoop, whoop. Got it. Okay, yeah. So it was specific enough that it was trying to say that yes, each of these should be an individual customer. All right, let's preview that again. All right. People heading off. We are out of time, yeah. Is there something else in the room after this?
We could have two study sessions after this. One for OSP and then one for DOA.
Okay. In this room?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Then we'll have to wrap up there then.
Sorry?
We'll have to wrap up there then. Okay.